And welcome, everybody. We are live. Welcome to all our viewers from YouTube, possibly from around the world, from the Netherlands, from Korea, and other parts that we cannot know exactly about. This is the roundtable entitled Gacha Abortion Pills, organized by Framer Framed. For those of you who don't know, Framer Framed is a Amsterdam-based platform for contemporary art, critical theory, and visual culture. And at the moment, their doors are closed, but they continue to organize important events at the crossroads of art and politics and activism, such as this one that I am very happy to host. I will now briefly introduce the panelists for today, as well as a little bit of how we are going to organize these 2 hours that we're going to spend together. And then I will start giving the floor to our panelists. Special thanks to Framer Framed, of course, and to Ji Young, who has been organizing all the production behind this event, although she is invisible, and to all the other technical help from Framer Framed. I am Domitilla Olivieri. Among other things, I teach at the University of Utrecht here in the Netherlands, and I work kind of in between feminism, art, activism. And here I will be moderating, taking your questions and making sure that all the panelists will have their time to speak. So a little bit for the structure of today. After I give a little bit more of an introduction about what this event is about, we will start with short presentation from each of the invited panelists. We'll start with two activists from the Femidangdang collective group, feminist group. They will tell us a lot more about their various activities they've been doing since 2016. The two activists from Femidangdang are Soyoung Chong and Hwayong Shin, and they are not just activists, but also also artists and graphic designers, if I did my research well. After their presentation, there will be a little bit of time for questions. You can type your questions from YouTube down in the comment section, and they will be brought to us. And then after this first presentation, we'll move to Bora Lee-Kil, who is a filmmaker and a writer. We'll listen to Bora's presentation, a little bit more time for questions after that. After these two interventions, which very much speak at what kind of activists practice can also embrace visual arts, performance arts, and other forms of artistic practice, we'll move to talk a little bit more about the situation in terms of reproductive justice more broadly. And for that, we have two speakers. We have Rebecca Gomperts, who is the founder and the director of Women on Waves, as well as Women on Web, and she will tell us a lot more about what they do. And we also have Na Young, who is a co-founder of SHARE, which is a Center for Sexual Rights and Reproductive Justice, as well as also a co-founder of other collectives such as the Queer Action Against COVID-19 Coalition, based in South Korea. After these two presentations, there will be time for a more, let's say, round part of the round table, in which I hope that not only will be my privilege to ask questions to all of you, but also you can, of course, talk to each other, and possibly we'll connect more with the people who are watching us from home. We'll continue like that until basically it's going to be 1 o'clock Central European time, and I believe something like 9 p.m. Korea time. So we have 2 hours more or less to be together. So welcome everyone. I am literally the least expert to talk about questions of activism and reproductive justice in Korea. I will just give 2 lines just for the viewers who don't know much about it, just to give a sense of what is the situation at the moment, because a lot has been happening in terms of your work and activism, and also in terms of some of the laws that possibly maybe are doing some improvements. So from what I know, still now with small adjustments, the main law that goes in Korea that basically criminalized abortion is as old as 1953. Many things have happened in the meantime, and I think especially since 2016, a lot of feminist groups, activists, women, and other collectives have been taking the streets to start protests. Some public attention, well, a lot of public attention has been given to these events, but not much has changed in terms of the law until in 2019. There's been also a ruling from the Constitutional Court, which deemed the abortion ban basically unconstitutional. That meant that some measures had to be taken, so the government had to do something about it. Some bills have passed, but not really satisfactory, I think, for many of us who follow these kind of issues closely. But importantly, 2 months ago in October, right, I think there has been an announcement of a new possible draft of a legislation which will change the situation. And very briefly, the situation is such that abortion is basically was and maybe still is considered mostly a crime under most circumstances. And that means that both the person who undergoes abortion as well as nurses or doctors who perform it have to pay fines, if not go to jail, and in other ways be prosecuted. Married women needed to have their husband's permission, and there is a lot of other measures in terms of time for consultation and so forth, which basically make the whole process not just difficult in practice, but also emotionally straining, and which leads to a lot of illegal abortion. And as well, we'll hear more about, that is exactly the least of the least safe option for people who undergo abortion. So this is sort of, I think, the main framework that we're talking about. We'll hear more about the details. What I think is also maybe important to keep in mind is that some of the adjustment to these laws have been, let's say, paying attention not so much maybe to women and to people who undergo abortions, but actually had a lot to do with the government policies about the amount of population and basically the birth rate. So I think, among other things, we'll be also talking about what is the situation right now in South Korea, not only in relation to abortion, because some of the actions and the performances you all have done are not only focused on that, but more broadly on reproductive justice. That's what we're going to talk about today. And of course, what I think is very important is that we'll discuss not only what all the work that you have done, but also how a certain form, let's call of art intervention, can actually affect change, both at the level of the law, which is what we want possibly eventually, but also at the level of how groups have come together and how artists and also how individual feminists have actually found a space to have their voice through those forms of like visual and performance art. So this is what I hope we are going to be doing together. That's all I think I wanted to say for now. So yeah, I think that since I spoke long enough, I think I'm just going to go the floor to a presentation from Femidangdang. They will tell us more about all their names and what they've been doing for these many years. That's good.
Okay, so I'll be sharing my screen. And thank you, Domitilla, for the great introduction. Our presentation today by me, Soyoung, and Hwayong will be an introduction of the both of us and our experiences as graphic designers, activists, and feminists. Our work in the merging of group activism and the performing arts started mostly in 2016, as we created and started a feminist activist group called Femidangdang here in Seoul. Since then, we have actively participated in the younger generation feminist movement here, led by a wave of women who have a strong foundation in the internet society and online communities. Great. 1 second. Yeah,
Hi, this is Hwayong Shin. Our presentation today will introduce our activities to advocate women's reproductive rights in the name of Femidangdang, which we are both part of, along with individually led performance groups. Ingration Girls Association is by myself, and Rich Need Crew is part of Soyoung's portfolio of group activism and performing art.
To start with the name, Femidangdang is a compound of the word feminists and a suffix that stands for pride or to be proud. Femidangdang then means an activist organization aiming to widen the scope of feminist and women's representation within South Korean politics.
Femidangdang is a group of about 10 people, including myself and Soyoung. As she mentioned, our activism started early 2016 when we took action as a response to a femicide, a gender-targeted violent homicide that took place in a public building in the busy Gangnam area of Seoul. The police and general public refused to acknowledge the homicide as one that had its roots in sexism, quite embedded in both the South Korean culture and mentality. The perpetrator stood in front of a public restroom and let many men pass before he decided on the first woman who entered as a victim. He stated he had been ignored by women all his life, so his anger was specific, violent, and direct. Enraged women, both indignant against the event and the social response, found solace in those who thought like them online. A movement was stilled, and as a group of friends, we created Femidangdang and held our first performances and protest.
The mirrors that you see us holding are similar to the sizes of funeral portraits that are used in Korean funerals. The black ribbon is a tradition for such portraits, and holding the mirrors embellished in such a ceremonial method. We marched from the place where the incident occurred down the street to exit 11 of Gangnam Station. Exit 10 of Gangnam Station, where the memorial space was located. The mirrors reflected the people walking by and watching. Any person reflected could have been a victim. The homicide was an event that stood for all the misogyny and violence women went through every single day in the South Korean society. The protest was powerful for us because we realized the strength and significance of women who stand together for a single message and aim. Femidangdang as a group found itself right at the center of the turmoil and social disruption that followed the awakening of the net femi generation. Net femi is a word combining internet and feminists. It's used to explain the general feminist movement on the online communities in South Korea, and we found ourselves kind of embedded in that movement as well.
In South Korea, abortion is outlawed and criminalized by legislation. The movement for abolishing the anti-abortion laws was actively started from the 90s. After the impeachment of President Park, the progressive regime entered, and expectations for legalized abortion were greater. So more than 200,000 people were signed petition to abolish abortions. Since October 2016, when Femidangdang was part of the very first Black protest against anti-abortion laws in South Korea, in partnership with Polish and Irish women in Korean New Feminist groups. We have focused on standing for abortion rights as a health right. You can see in the picture myself sits with all the other protesters on October 15th at a central square in Seoul. On the right, a fellow activist from Poland holds the flyer for our Black protests. Black protests were held with the same title in countries that criminalize abortion around the world, and we found a solidarity in sisters across borders and oceans.
And here you can see us marching after the rally of the first Black protest The person at the center is Jian, who is also part of Femidangdang. She is shouting out key slogans of the protests, such as, "The real problem is the fact that abortion is a crime."
Working in marches, shouting, making our voices heard has always felt significant to us. It is gratifying, especially when people watching or passing by acknowledge what we are protesting. Soyoung is holding a sign with one of the Black protest slogans, "Repeal the Eighth." It is an Irish slogan referring to the Eighth Amendment of the Constitution of Ireland. It is the law that bans abortion, similar to the South Korean Criminal Code number 269.
On the left is another flyer that I designed for a Black protest that followed the first one. And on the image in the far right, Bishop, who is also part of Femidangdang, stands in front of the crowd and is making a speech. The dress code for the rally was Black, and purple was used to symbolize a new kind of femininity, one that is still in the process of being defined by the younger generation demanding change in South Korea.
This is a project that was created and executed entirely by Femidangdang as a group. It was a chance for us to realize the activism we were most comfortable and effective with performing, one that was closer to the borders of performing arts and culture movement.
In the American TV series, Veep, the main character mentions in one of the episodes that if men were the ones getting pregnant, abortion pills would be available at every vending machine in the city. The truth is that most women in South Korea don't realize abortion through medication is an option, just because abortion and abortion medication are illegal and are not part of the education system. It was eye-opening for us members when we were studying about abortion options and processes when we read of abortion medication. Women on Waves, Women on Web was a big influence to us. We wanted to do something similar in that we wanted to make a performance piece that educated the general public on the types of medication that could assist and bring forth a termination of pregnancies.
So we set up a very provocative title, "Why Can't We Buy Abortion Pills in Vending Machines?" We borrowed a questioning format and wanted to give people the opportunity to imagine a new word with this question. A word where abortion pills can be purchased as easily as buying a drink from a vending machine was a symbol of a world in which we could choose safer ways when we wanted. In November 2017, we held our first abortion vending machine installation in front of the Seoul Museum of Art. We handed out flyers with information on abortion medication, mifepristone and mifjin. The packets inside the machine included a small information booklet, gummy candies, and vitamins. We also installed the machine in a busy district in front of Hwayong University. We had many students come up and inquire about our performance.
And a little while after we held several of our abortion vending machine performances, we were contacted by Rebecca, who is also here with us today. She proposed a joint event and asked us for ideas. She proposed we use a remote-controlled robot to deliver abortion pills to protesters. The woman would swallow the pills and Rebecca would be controlling the robot. The robot was a method for her to administer the pills while skirting the laws against abortion in that country. Similar performances had already been held in countries elsewhere by local women assisted by Women on Waves.
We wanted to modify the plan a bit and decided on a mass performance by 125 women. The event was planned by Femidangdang, Women and Waves, in Pomalam, a feminist publishing house. On the right, you can see the custom printed packets that were used to hold the information printout and pills that were distributed to the 125 performers participating in the group action.
On the day of the event, we had the anonymous participants gather in the square to represent the women who choose abortion in South Korea in 1 hour. Statistically, although abortion is illegal in South Korea, it's considered that approximately 3,000 women a day choose to have an abortion, and that would be divided by 24, about 125 an hour. The women would gather in the square, as you see in the photo. We stood together and swallow a pill, which could be either a mifepristone pill or a vitamin. And the important fact was that the people who were watching would not know whether the pill, the people in the performance are taking are an actual abortion pill or just a vitamin. And this led to this meant that we were standing for solidarity and providing anonymity to those who could be taking mifepristone among the performers. It's quite long, but this is part of the declaration that we read out during the performance. And to go to the final paragraph, today we take Mifegene that has been provided by Women on Waves, a nonprofit that delivers medication for oral abortions to women in countries that are bereft of choice. Abortion through oral medication has a very high success rate and is available for women up to 9 weeks of pregnancy. Not only is the pill not available in South Korea, not many people know of the medication itself. And that was our group performance.
Thank you. So, and from now on, we will talk about the projects that Soyoung and I personally led, starting with myself, Angry Asian Girls Association. Because of the stress and harassment from life as a feminist activist, after a year, I could not stay in Korea anymore. So I moved to Berlin seeking asylum. Berlin was not the exact Garden of Eden I expected to be either. I had to face racist people knee-howing me every day. And my dignity was debased when Nobushiraki, a sexual predators exhibition, was held in the middle of Berlin, despite our continuous demand to suspend it. Anger triggered me to do actions. So in the winter of 2018, CO Berlin, a well-known contemporary photography gallery in Berlin, held a special exhibition of Japanese photographer Nobushiraki. It was unacceptable that he held an exhibition even after he was exposed by the Me Too movement. In particular, there were many Asian women in Berlin who left their country because of misogynist culture and violence towards women. And we felt that it was an insult to us. So I gathered people, formed a group called Angry Asian Girls Association, a group that opposed sexual exploitation in the art industry, and planned an action against the exhibition. We held the demonstration in time for the opening day of the exhibition. The phrase I used for the sign was, "Are you sure your knowledge is correct?" This is an excerpt from a blog post by Kari, a model who exposed the sexual exploitation of Nobushiraki during the Me Too movement. This sign was aimed at CO Berlin and also towards the visitors waiting in long queues to enter the museum. And this is a poster I made for social media. The poster format of CO Berlin was used with a concise message, no hierarchy. I wanted to show a strong determination that under any circumstance, the exhibition of male photographers who have built a reputation through unfair sexual exploitation of female models should no longer be allowed, especially exhibited in Europe when all of his models are naked and strapped Asian women. And we organized an online poster rally where even those who are unable to participate in the protest opening day can participate. These are the posters for the rally that was uploaded on AAGA's social media.
And to finish with one of my individual projects, I would like to talk about the Witch Knit Crew, which is a community I started in 2018. We aim to send out a message of solidarity through graphic tapestries that are installed in various locations around the city, similar to graffiti. I selected the image and iconography of witches and witchcraft for the group, as I believe to be a witch is to embody all the elements and characteristics that are condemned by traditional cultures or patriarchy. What is considered unfeminine by tradition, to be independent, outspoken, unyielding, eccentric, creative, and weird. I wanted to kind of collaborate that all into the work that we are creating as a group. And I wanted to come together with other women to embrace this all and the process of redefining femininity in its entirety, entwining performing arts, graphic design, feminist activism, and witchcraft, which was all included in some of the areas that I were interested in. And yeah, so in September 2018, the photo on the right shows one of our first projects. We started a crowdfunding project to gather participants, and it include the tapestry was finished with the message, the witches are here to help, as you can see in the photo. It was a bold and neon announcement of unification and support. The finished size was around 3 by 4 meters and was a result of 100 pieces of individually hand crocheted parts sewn together to create a whole. And this is another one of our recent projects. It was early 2020. In April, just before the general election in South Korea, we created new pieces with the message, "Vote for Women." We also had a live knitting performance that was held in front of the General Assembly in Seoul, as you can see in the photo here, and it was streamed online. This is one of our tapestries hanging in a crossway in a busy district in Seoul, and guerrilla installments of our collaborative pieces were held in various public areas. As a group, we will continue to create pieces together for reasons we feel are significant in the process of investigating femininity, craft, and modern feminism. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much, especially also thank you for being so on time while giving us so much already to think about. I invite once again our viewers to just write their questions throughout, also when the presenters are speaking, so that then we can collect them at the end. So if there is no question from the audience for now, I have a little, many, but I will select at least one. From what both of you have told us, it seems like you're, and actually I think that's quite impressive, you're keeping together both like local intervention in Seoul and specifically in South Korea, as well as this international networks of spreading your work also online with live streamings, as well as with collaborations, or let's say echoing, right, the movements of other feminists, for example, in Poland you mentioned. What I was very curious about is how does your drive to then work together with other people, right, to constitute a group? I think Hwayong, you mentioned how you were angry at the idea that this exhibition was being held in Berlin, and then immediately you were like, oh, I want to find other women, other feminists to do this with. And it seems like in all of your project there is this desire to do things collectively. I was just wondering, like, where does that come from, and how do you feel is different from doing things individually or in a collective?
I think it just feels very natural, just because we're so used to connecting with people online in our daily lives, mostly due to this might sound obvious, but SNS and the internet has allowed us to talk and communicate with friends that might not even be in our own region or country. for the activists in Poland, I think we were contacted through Instagram, and it just shows how much different platforms have allowed us to connect with people who are experiencing similar things in another country. The fact that women in our generation still have to go through similar problems of how laws dictate what women do with their own bodies. It's sad, but it also leads us to finding, actively looking out for connections among societies, I guess. Hwayong, do you want to talk a bit more about,
Yeah, so for me, when I do work with other feminists or other groups or activities, I think the keyword is like division. Like everyone has their own ability, like the best thing they can do. And as a group, for example, Angry Asian Girls Association, I couldn't speak German really well, but since I gathered the people, there was a people who can translate German to English or English to German, moreover, Japanese to English or like English to Japanese. So as gathered as a team, I think that like teamwork makes or like results more perfect, more done. And also the backlash that targeted to individual is getting less when we work as a group. So that was also really important for me.
Yeah. And yeah, to continue from Hwayong, finding courage as a group, just because we have friends and people that we believe in and trust in, working for the same aim together in different projects, it definitely helped us, and it felt very natural.
And then also because you mentioned then how the strength that comes from working together, more specifically on the on the activities of Femidangdang, did you face any specific reactions from the audience or the passers-by? Do you think that by making these interventions also so creative, that your message could come across better, or that you face less resistance, or you face a lot of resistance or violence anyways?
The fact that we're a group, you mean?
Yes, the fact that you're a group, maybe, and the fact that you also use this like mixed formats, right? That there were also this more kind of creative intervention, so that you were many people as well as having this specific creative forms. Did that convey your message differently?
I'm not sure about differently, but I guess we had the conviction that we were doing our projects because we felt that the results were more effective. And that was mostly because, as I mentioned in the presentation, the general term for the online feminists who are usually most active in the new generation feminist activism in South Korea are called the Net Femi generation. And a big weapon that they have is anonymity, just because they can stay online and they can talk on digital communities. And the simple fact that we were out on the streets with our faces in plain view, I think just added to the strength that whatever performance whatever performance we were doing had. And it was, and the methods that we used were quite unusual. So I think the fact that it was just something that wasn't that usual to the people who are interested in the messages that we were doing the projects on also led to a kind of effectiveness in our work as Femidangdang.
You want to add something? No. So we are also receiving some questions from the viewers. I'm trying to address some of them. The ones that are not addressed immediately now, they will be addressed in the roundtable later. So do not worry, we are listening to you. But before we move with towards more questions, I'd like to give the floor to Bora Lee-Kil, who will also give a presentation, and then after that there will be time for your questions. Yes, and as I mentioned, Bora is a writer as well as a filmmaker, and I think that we'll hear more about the different kind of work that you've been doing.
Thank you for your introduction. Can you hear me very well? Yes, I'm gonna share my presentation notes. Yes, I'm here. Okay, today I'm going to talk about my art, I can say activism way of my art. I'm a Bora Lee-Kil, a filmmaker and writer from South Korea. I recently graduated master course in the Netherlands Film Academy. And yeah, recently moved to Korea, and finally I got moved to Japan. So my internet connection is not really stable very well because recently I got moved. So I don't know how to figure it out, but I'm gonna try to solve this problem well. So yeah. So I'm gonna start presentation. I identify myself as an artist, as a combination word of artist and activist. I'm going to present how I made my own artistic activism against anti-abortion law. So this is the newspaper in 2016. And I wrote a column on the newspaper about my mother's and my grandmother's and my abortion experience. The reason why I wrote essay as a column is because and in depth for my not being able to participate in Korea. I heard that some of the participants share their abortion experiences, claiming to right to free speech. The South Korean government has criminalized abortion since 1953. For a long time, I hoped to write about this experience. So this column started with the sentence, I had an abortion. My mother also had an abortion. My grandmother had an abortion too. In this essay, I describe In this essay, I describe how I was born as a child. My grandmother wanted to abort. The reason was that I was the first child in my family and a girl. In 1990, when I was born, the sex ratio was 116.8 boys to 100 girls due to the preference for boys. Many pregnancies were terminated because the child would be female. At the end of the column, I asked the question, why can we talk about our abortion experience? Even we, my mother, my grandmother, and I had the same experience. I added the hashtag on the title of the column as hashtag I had an abortion because I hoped it would become a starting point of the wave to share our abortion experience in the public. Like Shout Your Abortion, which was social media campaign started in 2015 by American activists. The column was shared by many people, and at the same time, there were so many malicious comments. However, there was no following hashtag movement because the social taboo, because of the social taboo of talking about abortion experience in public at the time. And later on, I moved to the Netherlands because I started the master course in the Netherlands Film Academy. And as Shin Hwayong explained earlier, one of the reasons why I moved to the Netherlands is that the misogyny of South Korea, and I couldn't stand it, being in Korea very well at the time. But at some point, just the abortion issues, it remained to me as a topic I wanted to deal with as an art. So I developed it as a graduation project within the frame of artistic research in cinema in the Netherlands Film Academy. So I will show you the fragment of the project. So this page is the publication when I graduated the Netherlands Film Academy. And this is the main photo of my project. Is dealing with my abortion, my grandmother's abortion, and my mother's abortions. Let me share. So this film is about the bodies of women in South Korea and Asia. They're untreated. I discovered that the Swedish International in 1968, that agency, International AI, provides considerable Korea's control policy. A woman's body is a place which contains hidden and unspoken memories and at the same time a frontline battleground of biopolitics, where politics, I'm developing it into a feature-length documentary film together with the Korean and Dutch producers. And also the research process will be published as a book. It has been selected as a talent doc-station project supported by Korean Film Fund and Seoul Film, kind of in ongoing project right now. And in October 2020, after South Korea's government announced the
Whoops. Okay, I think that we had a bit of a problem with your connection, Bora, just so you know. Also the sound, we couldn't really hear the sound or at all the sound of your film. We could focus on the images and the text a lot more, but yeah, just so you know, but please continue. But just, we are not seeing your presentation anymore, but maybe we can hear your voice if you try again.
Oh yeah.
Yes. We don't really hear you very well. That's a pity. So can you hear us well?
Yeah, I can hear. Sorry.
Oh, okay. No worries. But now it's working again. So maybe you can continue.
Yeah. I'm gonna continue again. Yeah, so 2020 October, after South Korean government announced the plan to keep the abortion criminalized, I suggested to share our abortion experience with a hashtag again. And at the time, one of my friends, who is a singer-songwriter, name is Irang, shared her abortion experience on Twitter. I replied and shared my abortion experience together with the hashtag 나는 낙태했다, which is the I had an abortion. And it became a small campaign with the sharing their people's abortion experience online without the sadness, shame, or regret. So it became a hashtag movement at the time. And as an individual artist, I have been doing my projects such as filmmaking, writing a column, and publishing a book. As an activist, I do some media interview as a feminist and woman, and at the same time, the person who experienced an abortion. Because fighting against anti-abortion law is very important issue for me as an activist and human being as well. Today I had a small talk with the Japanese women, some of the Japanese women in Japan, and they asked me why I'm making a film about women's bodies and reproductive rights. The question made me a bit surprised because the reason why I'm making a film is kind of very simple. Because I believe that this is the finding of human rights that I and we have been taken away for a long time. Yeah, thank you for listening and sorry for the bad connection.
Thank you very much for sharing. Actually, the bad connection made us even more keen to see more about your film because we could not get as much of it as we would have liked. So I see there is more questions also from the audience, but I suggest that we take the more broad questions about the situation of South Korea in terms of sex education or feminist movements later on, because I also suspect that Na Young probably will tell us something more anyway about the specific situation there. So now maybe Bora, to you directly. So there is there is a question in the chat that I'm receiving that I cannot read. So if any of you wants to have a look, but I have my own question that I was actually very curious. So you told us a bit. Well, you told us about your hashtag use of hashtag for activism, and then you showed us a piece of your film, which I find incredibly interesting, actually, how you worked with this different generation of women in your family. I was just wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about what does video, making a video, give to you in terms of you know, being able to give space to the bodies and the stories of women. How do you work with video as a tool?
No, it's kind of maybe it's kind of simple to me because I have been growing up with a video because I really liked to watching a documentary film since I was young, and yeah, it became a kind of tool for me, making a documentary and using the documentary by using the documentary, communicating with the people. It made me a kind of a tool to communicate with the public, and writing a column or writing an essay or writing a book as a tool of me as well. And I don't know, maybe for me the video, because I made a documentary about my family who is using the sign language, because as you watch it in the video, my mother is using a visual language, which is sign language. So for me, the video, the tool of the video is kind of becoming more effective way to communicate, to show how my mother or how my family or how myself communicated with the people. So in this project, I decided to make a documentary about my experience and also my dealing with my mother's experience. I thought maybe the showing my mother's language and also the showing her facial experience or facial expressions would be more effective if I use the video tool. So I choose the tool of the video.
Yes, and I mean, it does look very effective indeed. Did you have, do you think that giving the space also for your mother and your grandmother to speak on the video and for this video to be seen by many people in other events and also in this event, what do you think that experience was for, well, for them, but also for the three of you?
I think it's very important because when I asked the question of about the abortion to my grandmother and also my mother, actually at the time I didn't let them know I'm gonna do the interview about the abortion. So actually they got a shock in the studio, and also myself, it was kind of very difficult for me because I was a director, but at the same time I was a grandchild, and at the same time the daughter of my mom. Of course, they didn't want to share their experiences, but in front of the camera, anyway, they had to talk about something. And at some point, my mother and my grandmother, my mother and my grandmother didn't want to talk about their abortion experience, but at some point, they wanted to talk a bit. So yeah, I filmed that, and there was kind of interesting moment because my mother at the time, didn't want to share her abortion experience, but at the same time she shared. And later on, after maybe for 2 months, we didn't communicate each other. I never sent a message to her, and also she never sent a message to me at all. And at some point, it was there was a moment that the South Korea, the courts say that the law should be amended by 2020. The abortion law should amended by 2020. Then my mother sent me the picture of the headline of the newspaper, and it means she wanted to talk about her abortion again. So it's kind of, the by filmmaking, it's affected each other, like our relationship as well. And also during the filmmaking, she didn't want it to talk about because of the current situation. But at the same time, later on, she wanted to talk about her abortion because the politics is changing right now. So it's kind of interesting to see how my mother affected by the current situation in Korea. And I'm looking forward to talk with my mother and grandmother again, because now the abortion law is changing changing again. So I'm really looking forward to see how they reacted by the current law.
Yes, thank you. Also, well, we will have more time to talking a little bit later, but actually I think this final point on how the law then affects the lives of women is exactly a perfect bridge to give the floor to Nayoung. I think you're gonna go next. And I think as a co-founder of a Center for Sexual Rights, I think you have a lot to say on this topic. So I'd like to give you the floor, if that's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Take your time to set it all up.
Yeah,
we see it perfectly. So
yeah. I'm very sorry. Please wait for a while.
it's okay. I'm gonna fill the gaps. That's what the role of moderator, to fill some of the gaps. But whenever you're ready, just tell me. Okay?
Excuse me. Can Rebecca Gomperts do it first?
Oh, okay. We can indeed change the order a little bit. So I think we're going to ask Rebecca. Yes, perfect.
Yes. Hi.
You're ready to go. I introduced you earlier, but just briefly to say you are the founder, director of Women on Waves and Women on Webs, which I think is an organization that maybe doesn't need so much introduction for those of us who are interested in this topic. But nonetheless, well, you're going to tell us a lot more about all of your work. So
Yes.
whenever you're ready, you can go.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here, virtually, but in Amsterdam, which is, and I'm extremely excited to share the floor with Femidangdang because I feel very connected with them because of our campaigns that we have done together, and it was so nice and so excited. So I'm so happy to see you again. And I'm sorry I never met Bora because I didn't know you were in Amsterdam, and it would have been so nice to connect with you after and learning more about the very important work you do. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me see how I do that now. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let me talk a little bit about the power of abortion pills. So first, let's go to the abortion laws around the world very quickly. This is the map from this year, 2020, where you can see the green countries where abortion is legalized and the red and the orange countries where abortion is still illegal. South Korea is on this list, and we're looking forward to see some changes the coming year, especially Argentina voted for legalizing abortion now. South Korea should legalize abortion, and also Thailand has a similar court case, Supreme Court case that said that abortion should be legalized. Now, from my 20 years experience, I know that doesn't say everything. It's the first step because it doesn't mean that all women have access to abortions as they are entitled to have it. We, in the past 20 years, what is really encouraging is that actually most human rights agreements have confirmed that women have a legal right to a safe abortion, and that abortion laws are violating women's human rights. This is a statement from the World Health Organization, but also the United Nations. Several human rights reports have confirmed this. My work is mostly focused on the use of abortion pills. And the reason for that is that when the abortion pill was invented in the late 80s in France, what it did is it totally shifted the power paradigm. Because before, women needed to have a doctor or a nurse or somebody who knew about their anatomy, because the only way to have an abortion was a surgical abortion. And the pills, you don't need anybody. You need the pills and you need information, how to use the pills to have a most effective abortion. There's two methods to do it. One is with mifepristol and misoprostol, which is the most effective, but also misoprostol alone, which is available in most countries around the world. It's still very effective, 94%. So we have been working since 20 years to get women and the people around the world to get access to this information and access to the pills. The abortion pills are very similar to a spontaneous miscarriage, which is a very normal situation in the lives of women. 20% of women have a miscarriage when they're pregnant. And so it's something that they deal with by themselves without supervision of a doctor. And the pills can do the same thing. So the abortion pills are safe, they're acceptable, and they're private, and you can mail them. Now, the safety has been described as that it's the same health risk as commonly over-the-counter antibiotics or painkillers. So it's safer than a painkiller. There's more people dying from overdoses of painkillers than women dying from an abortion with pills. In perspective, when you do an unsafe abortion, it's 1 in 450 women that die. An unsafe abortion is like women that are using knitting needles, jumping off stairs, using herbs and poisons. And the safe abortion, medical abortion, it's less than 1.5 million. And if you look at, for example, the risk of dying when giving birth, it's 1 in 20,000. So the ironic here is that it's actually safer for a woman to do an early medical abortion than to continue the pregnancy that will end in a birth. The pill has been a catalyzer for change in many countries and many places. Our work, for example, we have done many different campaigns, which are also somehow on the threshold of art, activism, and medical services. We started operating an abortion boat in 20 years ago. Here you can see the boat during the campaign, which we did in Portugal, where we were stopped by warships. And as a result, there was so much outrage in Portugal. The government fell, and the political party that supported abortion rights won the elections, and abortion was legalized 3 years ago. 3 years later. So the campaign in Portugal with the ship really catalyzed the change in the abortion law there. We have supported since 2008 women's groups in Latin America and around the world to launch safe abortion hotlines, where we are training women's groups in giving information about the use of misoprostol alone. And women can call the hotline that's launched, and then they can get this information how to do an abortion safely themselves. And this is in Ecuador, which was the first abortion hotline, where we launched a banner on it's a statue of the Virgin of Quito. Now, the way these abortion hotlines are being announced are also with stamps on money and with stickers and graffiti, etc. We've been training women's rights organizations around the world, in Africa, Asia, and in Latin America. And another campaign that we started doing was to try to deliver the abortion pills in all kinds of creative ways. And I will show you the picture, the film of the abortion drone. Well, it should work, but it doesn't. Okay, this was a film. This is a drone which was flying from Germany to Poland to deliver the abortion pills to women in Poland. And then there were women in Poland swallowing the abortion pills. But I don't know why the film doesn't work, but that's fine. The other way that we did it is with an abortion robot, which is a small robot where we attach the abortion pills on top, and the robot was operated from the Netherlands, and it was delivering pills in Northern Ireland. And again, there the women took the pills and they swallowed it. So the reason what we think it's very powerful to swallow the abortion pills by women's groups is because a lot of the anti-abortion activists or anti-abortion people are saying, oh, it's so dangerous, these abortion pills, and women will die, and we need to control them, and we need to control them more. And when people take the pills, that statement is immediately undermined when you do it publicly. And for example, in Ireland, it were politicians that were taking the pills in the parliament. Now, 15 years ago, we also started another service. It's a telemedical abortion service, Women on Web. And we were censored in South Korea. So women from South Korea that are seeing this presentation, please go to abortion.kr because that one still works. It's not being censored. The Women on Web is also censored in many other places now, in Turkey, in Spain, and Saudi Arabia, and some other countries. But in the 15 years of Women on Web, we've helped more than 100,000 women receiving a medical abortion. We answered over 1 million emails from women. It's now available in 22 languages. And what it did mostly is it's changed policies and guidelines because especially now in COVID, for example, in the UK, it's the standard care, and in France, telemedical abortions are the standard care for women in these places. And it's a very accepted service to do an abortion through telemedicine, which means that they do an online consultation and then the medicines are sent to the women's home address. For example, when we published our first scientific research, which was in 2008, the Daily Telegraph, which is a UK newspaper, said women risk their health by using abortion websites. And then, you know, not even 8 years later, the same magazine said, abortion pills, everything you need to know, and then they refer to Women on Web. So what's important to understand is that COVID has sped up the developments around telemedical abortion care. Because, of course, what you see is that all the measurements that are put in place to limit transmission, it has a lot of impact for women. Financial, many women are losing their jobs, but also logistically, women travel anymore from other, you know, to a clinic in other areas. But also there's a lack of capacity in a lot of the surgical, in hospitals. So surgical abortions are harder to get, and sometimes they even stop providing them in some countries. But also social, when the schools are closed, women don't have childcare. They cannot go to a clinic, even if they could go to a hospital. Or they cannot go because they are having symptoms of COVID themselves, or their children have symptoms. The rate of domestic violence has increased dramatically because of COVID, because people are locked down together. And so what we also see now is that that's why the UK and France actually started implementing telemedical abortions for women standardly to overcome the problems that women have to access regular services. The World Health Organization also came out with an advice in June this year, and it recommends that individuals in the first trimester can self-administer mifepristone and misoprostol without direct supervision of a healthcare provider. And these are really, I mean, when we started 15 years ago, this was unthinkable. So it's been a lot has been achieved here, and it's really amazing that the World Health Organization is now, acknowledging the safety of these medicines by women themselves. So the only problem is that countries are still some countries are still very much controlling the drugs. And, if you compare it with Viagra, which is actually more dangerous, it's available very easily and compared to mifepristone. Thank you. That was my presentation.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. That was a lot of information, and also so good to see successes actually when actions and activists come together. Then to see in relatively few years the ginormous changes happening around the world is quite heartwarming.
Yes,
and empowering, of course. We'll get to more questions to you, Rebecca, later on in the roundtable, if that's okay. So I can give the floor back to Nayang. Do you?
I want to stop my screening.
Yes, please,
stop
you
share.
did it.
I stopped it? Okay, great.
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, Rebecca. Nayang, you want to?
Yes, I'm ready.
Perfect.
Yeah, sorry. Hi. First of all, I really appreciate for making this event, and I'm so glad to have an opportunity to introduce the reproductive justice movement in South Korea and about the share. Center for Sexual Rights and Reproductive Justice, SHARE, was founded in 2019 after the Constitutional Court ruled the criminal provision on abortion is unconstitutional. SHARE is the first organization in South Korea which provides comprehensive and intersectional SRHR services. We research law and policy for SRHR and provide medical support. We also make resources and training programs for instructors of sex education, counselors, and health professions, and translators. Our vision is to create a society where everyone can be guaranteed their sexual and reproductive rights and to achieve social justice for this aim. The history and background of why we founded SHARE are deeply related to the history and context of the abortion rights movement and reproductive justice movement of South Korea. So I would like to introduce it very briefly. It is really needed to explain in detail, but because of the time limit about further context, I will try to use discussion time. For now, please refer to this timeline. Sorry, I just show you these slides and skip quickly. According to the Criminal Act of South Korea, women who get an abortion can spend up to a year in prison or be fined up to 2 million won, about $1,850. Doctors, midwives, and any healthcare workers who provide abortion can face up to 2 years in prison. However, during the 1970s, a dictatorial government drove national family planning policy with an economic development plan, and the government enacted the Mother and Child Health Law to push the population control. This law defines 5 exceptions of illegal abortion. The grounds are an eugenic disease of parents or disability of parents, pregnancy by rape or incest, and critical health problems by pregnancy. Also, this law requires the consent of male spouses, even on these grounds. So under this law, many women with disabilities and who have the transmittable disease were forced to have an abortion. Abortion issues deal with injustice to the people with disabilities and as just individual matters in the circumstance of ignoring socioeconomic and sexual inequalities of this society. The government has controlled women's sexuality by using criminal provisions, and at the same time, on the other hand, has controlled unproductive lives by restricting the reproduction of people with disabilities and other social minorities. The activities that motivated and affected to found SHARE started in this context. Co-founders of SHARE met in 2015, just 1 year before the abortion issue re-emerged in South Korea, when the organization Women with Disabilities Empathy initiated the planning group to make a new paradigm for reproductive rights for women with disabilities. This project team reviewed the history of discourse on and context of the criminalization of abortion in South Korea, and they gathered stories of abortion experiences from women with disabilities. While engaging in these activities, we realized that achieving abortion rights alone could not guarantee women's reproductive rights in South Korea without first acknowledging and addressing the forced sterilization and abortion experienced by women with disabilities. And we could produce new discourse and paradigms as the reproductive justice movement by revealing that the South Korean government historically had not protected both the right of women or the lives of fetus. I believe that this has had a very important impact on the movement. I have participated in the movement since 2010, when abortion became an issue for the first time in Korea, and started joint action. But at the time, we didn't know the limit of logic of the right to life versus right to decide. And this has not been able to properly capture the context of Korean society. By listening to the experience of women with disabilities and understanding the historical context, we were able to explain the issue of abortion as a matter of social justice, and the lawyers were able to persuade the judges of the Constitutional Court with the logic of lead a completely different decision than in 2012. The next year, in 2016, we made the Sexual and Reproductive Rights Forum, which is the former organization of SHARE. We gathered activists, lawyers, doctors, and researchers to analyze the intersectional of abortion issues in the historical context and to turn it into reproductive justice discourse. And in 2017, we proposed to launch the joint action for reproductive justice to other organizations. Now the joint action has 31 organizations. Under the Constitutional Court historical ruling last year that abortion should not be criminalized, lawmakers have until the end of 2020 to revise the law on terminating pregnancies, but they still not make a decision among 6 proposed amendments. If members of the National Assembly were to pass the amendment by the end of this year, the criminal provisions in the Criminal Act will not be effective anymore. And we are still fighting, asking to repeal the criminal provisions completely, because this is not just for the right of autonomy and self-determination, but also problems of inequality and injustice. So from next year, without any punishment, we need to realize reproductive justice more actively. To do that, SHARE announced the Framework Act on the Guarantee of Sexual and Reproductive Rights and proposed this to members of the National Assembly. And we also published a safe abortion guidebook for counselors and medical professions. Title is Together by Your Side on the first week of this month. And now we are networking with more organizations like trade unions, LGBTIQ groups, single mothers organizations, migrant and refugee groups, disability justice groups, and other social movement groups to fight together to reproductive justice, for reproductive justice. I believe the abortion ban will soon disappear into history. So the historical day comes just in 10 days, and we will keep more move forward. I hope our struggle and experiences can inspires you to expand the reproductive justice movement and can be linked to you and more activists all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all the work that you and others have been doing then for basically 10 years. And also, indeed, let's hope that this optimist ending that you gave us at the presentation is really what's going to happen possibly in 10 days. So we have now at the time to listen to all of you. What I would like is to sort of like get together and maybe discuss some questions, both that came from the audience and maybe that we also have. So before maybe moving to some of the questions from the audience, does any of you want to have questions to the others? Often that is forgotten among people who are presenting. If you have questions, of course, you just raise your hands or just start talking and it's gonna be fine. But otherwise I will start, especially in light of the work of Share and what you have just told us. You opened up also the conversation a little bit more to this question of inequality and justice, right? And so reproductive justice is very much access to abortion and legalizing it, but it's also a lot of other issues of inequalities that affect different kind of groups or different kind of women differently. So what I was a bit curious about, if any of you wants to say maybe a little bit more about what is the situation in terms of other like feminist movements or activist groups happening in South Korea now, and maybe also in the past years. I don't know if you've been involved in other activities, because what I find quite important from what little I know is that in a way there are some laws that seem to, at least superficially, to be for women. They seem to be sort of in the last few years more and more laws to supposedly help women or make space for more inclusive space. But then it sounds like also the work at the beginning that Soyoung, you were talking about, like there's a very specific kind of femininity that seems to be presented in these laws. So just if any of you wants to elaborate a little bit more on the situation for justice and rights for women broadly, not just in terms of reproductive justice. It's a big question, but any new information will be.
Yeah, it's a big question. First of all, can I brief history and context of South Korean abortion law?
Absolutely, please.
Yeah, actually, the anti-abortion law of South Korea was made during the Japanese occupation after independence and the Korean War, when the First Assembly made criminal law in 1953, they decided to keep the criminal provisions on abortion made by Japanese government. However, as I mentioned in my presentation, during the 1970s, a dictatorial government drove national family planning policy with an economic development plan, and the government enacted the mother and child death law to push the population control, and the law defined 5 exceptions to illegal abortion. In fact, the South Korean government could get a huge amount of international aid through the family planning policy. And it is very useful not only to drive population control, but also to achieve a goal of the economic development plan. The government actually promoted birth control and abortion to achieve a goal of population policy, and social, economic, sexual inequalities were not changed, and men didn't cooperate with contraception. But just women had to handle of all of these responsibilities or had to be punished. So Korean society has been being apt to deal with abortion issues of married women as unavoidable matters, but for unmarried women, and especially to the minors, it dealt with as a matter of irresponsibility or decadence. In this context, many women actually didn't know the existence of abortion law because the law didn't work actually. Abortion was a very common experiences for many Korean women, like Bora's grandmother, mother, and my sister, every woman. Women who have experienced abortion tended to hide their experiences because of social stigma, not because of the law. Since 2005, the Korean government turned the direction of population policy due to a trend of fertility rates decline. And in 2009, the first pro-life doctors organization appeared. They sued the doctors and hospitals for performing an abortion if it was very effective to make doctors refuse abortion services for fear of punishment. Most of doctors refused abortion services, and many women were sued by their partners or husband because of the mother and child health law as the consent of their male spouses. During this period, women went abroad for an abortion, and the cost increased very highly. Furthermore, the black market and broker of abortion pill appeared. So South Korean feminists mobilized people for the first time to raise problems of anti-abortion law in 2010. I enjoyed since then. In 2012, the Constitutional Court reviewed the criminal provisions on abortion in criminal code for the first time, but they decided the law is constitutional. In 2016, the Korean Ministry of Health and Welfare announced an amendment that would double jeopardize doctors who performed in terminating a pregnancy by listing surgical abortions as an unethical medical practice. This pulled out the views of the movement again. Korean feminists mobilized Black Protest Korea and launched joint action for reproductive justice. More than 335,000 people, 235,000 people signed a Blue House petition calling for the repeal of the Anti-Abortion Act and the legalization of mifepristone. As a result of continuous struggle, on April 11th, 2019, the Constitutional Court ruled the criminal provisions on abortion in the Criminal Act is unconstitutional. So under the ruling, lawmakers have until the end of 2020 to revise the law terminating pregnancies, and still the members of National Assembly cannot decide anything. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, go on.
Sorry. And to cover or to mention other matters that relate to the female condition of South Korean women. And also, I think there was a question that asked if we are making an effort to communicate with older generations of women and feminists in South Korea. I know that one of the major efforts of the generation of activists before us in South Korea was for the abolition of the family, of the government family law, and that was because South Korea is traditionally a patriarchy. When families are documented by the government, it was always under the name of the husband. So it was, the woman did not have their own registration. It was under their husband or their father. And the abolishment of that law in general was a very big issue in the generation before us. And I think that kind of shows how South Korea has treated women or considered women as part of, as the property of the men who are part of the society.
Thanks. I think both of these points answer also a bit of the question of the history of feminist movements in South Korea. There was another question that I think it emerged when one of you was talking about how few people, well, in the world, it looks like, but specifically in South Korea, know about the existence of abortion pills. And somebody asked, what kind of sex education, like formal sex education, happens in schools in South Korea, or maybe informal ways in which there is some forms of sharing knowledge on reproductive matters? Yes, please go.
Oh, yeah, so also for me, I first know about these pills after I started Femidangdang, and then did some seminar about abortion and reproductive rights. So in schools, I was born in 1992, and then every sex education was focused on like that abortion is something that we should not to do it. Like we saw this video called The Silent Scream that made in 1980s under the anti-abortion propaganda. So like these small babies were like swimming and then try to avoid these tools, you know, and then watch this, and we didn't even educated about HIV or HPV and things. So we don't really have this sexual education in Korea, I guess. So I'm not sure about
oh, sorry.
nowadays, but like we were like that 1990s kids didn't have any information about like women's rights, like how to do safe abortion and things.
Soyoung, if you want to go next and then Bora, or vice versa.
Maybe I'm go first.
You can go first.
Yeah, thanks. Following the answers, there was kind of very interesting memory I have. I was born in 1990, and when I was in the middle school, I was in the girls' middle school, and at the time there was a sex education, but it was not, how can I say, it's just like once per semester, as I remember, and then one just lecture came to the middle school, and she just taught about the sex education, very lovely. And then she gave us the sunjeol candy, how can I say, the virgin candy, I can say. And we shared the virgin candy together, and we promised we're gonna be virgin for before we get married. So we shared the virgin candy together, and we just signed our name, and then we took a candy, and then there was kind of very what is that, this the candy has a kind of there are some kind of the rumor. This is kind of the from the dick of the some person who is the head of the some religion. So we kind of share that kind of like a rumor, kind of not really, how can I say. So it means there was no like a proper sex education exist in Korea, and yeah, and also at the same time there was some like the one day, one of the teacher gave us homework, which is the drawing the man's dick. But we are in the girls' middle school, and actually we had to, I believe that we had to draw our vagina, the women's vagina, but the teacher just let us draw the man's dick only, but we don't know how to draw our vagina, and we don't know how the shape of the women's. So it's kind of the represented the how the Korean society perceive the sex, which is focusing on the men only, which is not only focusing on the women.
And I think that just shows how much sex education in Korea is a formality. It's not that many hours are given in schools for sex ed, and reproduction and reproductive and related methods are the issue itself is so taboo, I guess, that it's definitely not part of the general conversation. And that's why when Hwayong and I were part of our activities, we would be contacted every day through social platforms by women who were urgently in need of abortion methods, any kind of help. They didn't have any other channels to go through, and they eventually had to kind of contact us because they were so closed in. Like, so information in general, it's not in the open. It's very hard to search for anything related to reproductive methods in or related information in Korea.
And from what you all said, it seems like it is a matter of the law, as we saw, but it's also a matter of some moral taboo, I think, as you put it. Is it a specific, I don't know, the evangelic aspects of Korean culture as a big role on this, or do you feel that is, I don't know, it's implemented by laws mostly, or is there a sense of indeed moral taboo? Or I think one of you also mentioned how for minors, the law that applies to minors who want to have an abortion is a matter of what did you say? Misbehavior or something like that. So it seems to be a moral issue and not only a legal issue, which is maybe true in many countries. Just want to say, by the way, Rebecca, if at any point you want to jump in, just turn on your microphone, because I think you can also add not only knowledge, your knowledge about South Korea, but also how this compares to so many other countries that are facing very similar problems.
Thanks.
Did you want to add something now or whenever? You don't have to.
Well, I think that, yeah, I mean, I can add, I think it's very similar in many places where the Catholic Church is, or any religious institution is, has any saying over education in schools. And this is, of course, also a big problem in Poland, but also in Ireland for a long time. Wait, okay, I'll put on my video. So I don't think you can, in that sense, the struggle for legal abortion is very intertwined with society as a whole. Yeah, I mean, we also see it here in the Netherlands, actually, where, you know, here in the Netherlands also abortion is still part of the criminal code, which is, and that is because the abortion is now an exception from the criminal code, where the criminal code states that it's illegal, that doctors can go to jail for jails unless women go to a special clinic or a hospital. And there are 13 clinics in the Netherlands, which means that a girl from like one of the islands or from a rural area, she has to travel for hours in order to get to an abortion clinic, which is, I mean, it's unheard of, I think, in this time, where, you know, the abortion pills can be provided by any healthcare provider, midwives, nurses. The scientific research has shown that. And it's so hard to make any advance so that countries are going to adhere to the scientific, you know, state of things. And that is because, for example, in the Netherlands, it's always like almost all the governments are coalitions with the Christian parties. So the struggle doesn't subside ever, not even when it's legal. I mean, I think sometimes there's opportunities that people grasp, and then suddenly there's the very fundamental widespread change, like which now happened with COVID in the UK and in France. Or, you know, what I think is interesting about what happens in South Korea, what I wonder is, if there is not a new law put in place, what does this actually mean? Does it mean that from the 1st of January, basically the doctors can do whatever they want because it's not regulated anymore? And this is what happened in Canada, actually, where there is no criminal law anymore, and it's just a medical procedure. So the question is actually, perhaps you don't want a law to replace the current law. Perhaps you're better off leaving the situation as it is, where from the 1st of January, the court decision means that there's no criminal law anymore because it's a violation of the Constitution. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, I am certainly the last person to be able to answer this question,
Yeah,
although
that's
I
why
do
I
see,
asked.
yeah, indeed. Let's
yeah.
see for others, exactly. Because I've also seen how with other laws that affects question of reproductive justice in other countries, in the moment that laws are being designed, there is always something that falls out of the laws, and then it
Yeah.
becomes maybe abortion, in this case, become accessible, but only for example, married couples, or it becomes only for indeed people who live in the city, so and so forth. So I recognize the question, but I don't have an answer. Hwayong, do you think you can add to this? Yes, of course, please.
Yeah, I'd like to answer that. Actually, we really referred the Canadian cases, actually, and we proposed the cases to the members of National Assembly, and they concerned about that. So I think, first of all, from the January of next year, first of all, the government should announce that abortion is not a crime anymore and will be treated as a medical service.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is very important to eliminate stigma and encourage also medical professions to help women. And the government should urge companies to guarantee abortion leave, like maternity leave, and should ban disadvantage or discrimination on the ground of abortion in companies and schools. And we should urge the government to apply health insurance to abortion services. Yeah, and also medical abortion too. But unfortunately, my government is not ready to that. But yeah, we have to urge to the government, and we need to link social services like comprehensive information and translation services, foreign language and sign language interpreter, and personal assistance for women with disabilities, and other social welfare services to support social minorities, such as women with disabilities, teenagers, migrants, and refugees. We are ready to do that with other organizations now.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
But to talk about the motivation behind how the society thinks of the woman's body and how the government or laws regulate the woman's body, I think it relates more to the general tradition of South Korea and the general mentality that follows our long history. To give an example, in 1990, as Bora mentioned during her presentation, selective abortion of female fetuses were so rampant, and that was because the zodiac sign in 1990 was a white horse. And the qualities of a white horse is usually thought to be demanding or stubborn or outgoing, and that is not a quality that is considered positive for women. So that was why the abortion, many women chose to have their female babies aborted. So it's not logical. It's not. I wouldn't say it's all relating to religion. It's a combination of all different things, and a result of a very long history of men regulating women's bodies. So it's very difficult to change, as Hwayong has explained, the very long process of the recent women's activism. It's very difficult.
And I think in that sense, it is somehow the kind of an alternative space where you're carving out realities that are outside the official sphere are so empowering, because it's which is happening with the abortion pills, where it's and I think that in itself is such a powerful revolutionary statement, where women just take the pills themselves. They don't wait till government is regulating the services, but they take care of their own health and their own lives. And and I think that will, in the end, also lead to an acceptance and a normalization, which is actually what happened in Ireland, where the moment that we had published our data, how many women were using the pills, that the government said, well, now we better regulate it because, or legalize it, because we won't stop this practice from women taking abortion pills on their own unless we make it available for them. So I think, and in that sense, it's, I think there are other moments in history where this was happening, where people decided, or women or other groups decided to just create their parallel alternative societies within the official society.
Yeah, which in some ways, of course, is not exactly a parallel society, but it feels to me like the kind of feminist collective activism and art that you are all part of. Is it also creating that space, right? Also to share and learn from other people things that you don't get, or you don't even need your government to give you necessarily. Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
And then I think that is how. Sorry. You go, Soyoung.
I just wanted to add that, yeah, it's about creating spaces, and just because, as I said, the misogyny is so fundamental to the Korean society, it's easier for us. It felt easier for us to choose what would seem like radical methods or strange or weird methods that would kind of attack the general idea or taboo around the abortion or other such feminist issues. Rebecca, you can continue.
No, and that's why it's so exciting what you do. So yeah.
Thank you.
And in relation with, let's say, these unusual methods, the way they can be seen. I mean, we also had a question that talked about that, but there was a question more about how to communicate with older generations of women and feminists. And I thought that is indeed the history of feminist movements and how you are connected, but also maybe that some of the artistic practice or activist practice that you have chosen are possibly, they speak more to, let's say, younger generation of women. Do you feel that is part of the experience that you've had with your artivism?
I want to say something about that, because I believe that perhaps it should be the other way around, where the older feminists should make a more effort to connect with the young ones instead of the other way around. I would like. I always feel that sorry for saying that you need to, everybody just needs to develop their own activism at their own moment in their own lifetime, how they want to do it and how they feel appropriate. And then it's for the people that actually have the overview and the history to reach out to the young people that are carving out their own space instead of the other way around.
Mm-hmm. And our paths eventually coincide, I think, because a recent project that I did with Jian, who is part of Femidangdang, was relating to interviewing an older generation feminist group that actively embodied the artivism mindset. And they already back in the 1990s, when they were actively part of the creative scene in Seoul, they already brought in the issues of feminism and the issues relating to women's bodies and connected it with the mediums they were comfortable with. They were a group called Ipgim in South Korea. So I think, as Rebecca said, it's about finding ways of speaking out that feel more comfortable to you, and eventually those methods and messages will find a way to connect with the generations around you if they are interested in the issues as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yes, Bora, go ahead.
Yeah, just for the answering the question, just my grandmother came up into my mind. because my grandmother believed that because she had several the abortion in her life, and one time she just left her young female child in the mountain because she didn't want to have a more female child in her life. So that's why she believed that she got the deaf child, two deaf child in her life. So still she believed that the reason why she got the disabled child in her life is because she left the several babies, or she got the several abortion in her life. Of course, this is illogic. It is unlogical at all, but the reason why I want to make this documentary, I would like to communicate with my grandmother, because I want to just talk to her. This is not because of your abortion. Your abortion happened because of the politics and also the social circumstances at the moment. So I would like to communicate with the older generation in Korea by filmmaking. And maybe I'm not sure my grandmother would understand, but I would like to communicate with by filmmaking and also through the arts. I think I can communicate with those elder generation.
Yeah, and I think what is also important about that is that it also makes sometimes it will also be educative for all the other younger activists that it's a history. It's a long history. I mean, I stand on the shoulders of the activists before me, and they stand on the shoulders of the activists before them. And even if you don't consciously know it, it's the changes that were made by the generations before us is what makes us being able to do what we do. And even if we don't know who they are, even though we don't know their names or we don't know that history, it's still very much part of this awareness. And I love that. And I also think it's really beautiful to have these conversations over generations to understand. Yeah, it's beautiful. So for example, yes. Like I cannot even start to imagine, like my mother, she had to quit her job because she got married. You know, it's just one generation difference. And yeah, we need to understand how long, I mean, it's not even 100 years that women, even in the Western world, that we have something like a voting right. It's not even that long, so we still have so much catch up to do.
And now, Young, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to add one. Maybe you can see the film, South Korean film about abortion experiences. Its title is Let's Dance. In that film, the very first scene, 70s and 80s years old women appears in the film, and they say they have abortion 8 times, 13 times in their generations. It was just general experiences, but it's very different experiences. And some of them, they until 1980s, some of them first sterilized by government. So we need to share the experience and need to repeat more about the experiences, especially during this time. Yeah.
I just want to say that, I mean, because this conversation is gonna stay on YouTube, and you are now also mentioning other resources apart from your own websites and your own projects. So I think it would be great, of course. I mean, Frame will add some information online, but I think then if any of you wants to then check out the YouTube video itself, it could be good also to share on that platform. Maybe it's not accessible necessarily, you know, in all the languages, but at least it would sort of be a space where to find information, since from what you're saying, from within South Korea, and I imagine also internationally, there is such a difficulty in finding information, right? And all of you are doing that work of actually sharing resources. So we can do that, so that place also can be that space for having those links and titles. A question from the audience asked to Rebecca from Women Waves how many pills were sent to South Korea in the past years, and her answer is approximately 300 per month. So think about that. Since we have about 5 minutes before we conclude, I would just like maybe have a little round to, if you want to add anything, but also maybe what are your current or future projects? Where do you see your art activism or the laws or other groups going? If we can have a little round with that, at least we also project toward the future and what still has to be done. Does any of you want to start? Yes, you. Yeah, go ahead.
Soyoung, go ahead. You're first.
Just as we've introduced Femidangdang and Hwayong's AAGA, my WitchNet crew, we're still thinking about continuing additional projects in the future. So that'll all be online in the channels that we can link through the Framer Framed website or on the YouTube comments. Yeah, that's it. Niall?
Oh yeah, I'd like to just add for suggestion for international cooperation for reproductive justice movement. We were already inspired, pretty much inspired and affected so much by brave activists over the world, like Poland, Ireland, Argentina. And I hope and believe our case will affect you. So especially South Korea can be the second country that abortion is totally decriminalized next to Canada. So we made it, and I believe we will be able to share a better model of decriminalization. I think it's like a riverbank. When we burst what has been blocking our rights, it reveals the state's responsibility for all kinds of social inequalities it has hidden. So from now on, we will create a model that changes the inequality. And a good thing about the misfortune of the corona pandemic is we are getting better skills for online meetings like this Zoom meeting. So I hope we can share our experiences and can be made broader solidarity. Thank you.
Rebecca, did you want to go next? I saw your mic was unmuted. You don't have to.
Oh, no, I look very much forward to what will happen in South Korea. I think one of those things that we will know whether or not there will be more access to abortion is we are going to monitor it because we ask women why they cannot access local abortion services. So we'll be really happy to share with you the data after the 1st of January, which women cannot access abortion yet. So let's do this project together and let's make it into the public. Like we can research it and do a press release about it, or an action, or a film, or an art campaign where we are going to visualize the women that will still not be able to access abortions after the 1st of January. Yeah, is this an invitation for all of us working together after the 1st of January to make sure that all women will be, in the end, will be able to get an abortion safely in South Korea?
Yes, I mean, it sounds like a great invitation, and thanks indeed. Also, the fact that Framer Framed gave this space. Let's make it continue, yeah. Right? Let's not make it a one-off. Bora, did you want to also add something?
Yeah, as I presented, I'm making a documentary film. This is an ongoing project, so it will be done, I think, in 2022 or 2023 as a feature film. So I would like to meet more audiences in the future, and yeah, and also I'm planning to write the book. How can I say, together with the research and together with the filmmaking. So it will be published in 2022 or 2022. I hope so. Yeah, that's all so far. And it's kind because I realized that my during my presentation, my video sound does not work at all because there are so many like a panel send me the message, but I didn't see. I just saw it now, so I'm sorry for that. But you can search my video online. If you search Our Bodies Bora Lee-Kil, then you can find in the Berlinale website or YouTube as well. So please, yeah, if you're interested in, please watch it through that.
Yes, I think we will all definitely do, and probably our viewers as well. Hwayong, did you want to?
Can I propose a project with you also? Because one of the things that I've been thinking about, which would be super nice, is to try, you know, to find women that used the Women Web Service 1 year or 2 years ago, and to ask them how it changed their lives. How was their situation at that moment, and how did it change their lives? I think it's something that I've been dreaming about for a long time, because it's and it's nice to have a filmmaker in the audience.
I mean, it's gonna be very interesting because I found that the women on web, I got an abortion after that. After more years, I got an abortion, and I just realized that, oh my God, it's happened. It exists in the world, and I was able to get the peer by online. I didn't know it at the time, so I had a very miserable time at the time. And after finding out your website exists in the world, it just gave me a lot of inspiration. So yeah, it's gonna be very interesting if I have something like an interview with someone who received the peer from your website. I think it's gonna be very interesting interview. I'm gonna consider it.
Okay.
Yeah, Hwayong, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to do something to raise more awareness about that we have so many things to do, even after the abolishing the anti-abortion law. So legalization of abortion also means that it's under control from government and the system. So that means it can be more strict and less freedom than before. So I also tweeted about my experience of abortion when I did in Germany on Twitter. And that was like the part of it, because there was this 48 hours of considerate before you make decision, and also a lot of things have to consider at the process. So I personally want to do more after this. Thank you.
Okay, we have to conclude, although this is just the beginning of many projects. I would like maybe, well, first of all, to ask you all, Framer Frame and the people who are watching us from home, and maybe to really take this seriously, these invitations that you've been giving to each other. We can ask Framer Framed maybe to facilitate some of those, or at least the initial encounters, maybe a continuation between all of you, although you also do know each other already and have different channels. But I think it's great also to have such a platform that works on art and politics together, that could actually host this kind of conversation. So I would like to thank you all, and for the viewer at home, you will surely hear more from every of the people here, and please go check out their work more in depth and share it with your friends. So bye for now, and you'll hear more about all of us soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.